Hi folks, this is Karim Raouf from Untitled channel. Today we will continue our lambda transformers. I think we will discuss, this video is the video number, let me tell you all, it is just 1 minute. I need to have a little bit of a look. This is okay, we are talking, this is the 38th video. Okay, we were talking before in the previous videos about how to set up a WSUS. We are saying, or I have said before, that WSUS is an abbreviation of Windows Server Update Services. This is a service that you can install on Windows Server 2019 or whatsoever Windows Server machine. Okay, it can be a domain controller or it can be a domain controller or a member server, as you wish. Okay, we can install this service. The main function of this service is to have or to download Windows updates and to be in a centralized location. Okay, it will be, for example, if you have it installed on a domain controller, you will save all the Windows updates on this domain controller, which have the WSUS server role installed on it, and then this server will distribute these updates to all of the workstations and servers in the domain. Okay, we have said before how this mechanism works. Okay, we have discussed it we have discussed it several times. Okay, and the last lab we have the last video have a small problem that some workstations, or when you go to a workstation and make or tell it to update itself or to get Windows updates, normally it will ask the WSUS for updates, but this process is broken somehow, or it is not completed. Okay, so in the previous video we have searched the internet because we have an error number when we try to update the workstation. It was an Windows 10 workstation that contains Office and other applications, and it tried to communicate with the WSUS to get its update, but it failed and it gives a error number. We have searched this error number on the internet and got some recommendations or some solutions. So in this video we will try to solve this problem, and we will begin another thing. After finishing this problem, we can discuss it when we reach it. So let's begin this video. Please, if you want to know more about the WSUS, please refer to my 2 previous videos. Okay. So here we have the WSUS installed on our domain controller, which is this machine. I will increase the RAM because I will do a little process. I will tell you all what is this little process, because this little process needs extra RAM until we get to this point. To get to this point, please in your lab increase the RAM, and I will tell you why. So now we have the domain controller opened and the operating system loaded, or it's being loaded. As I said before, we have the WSUS installed on it. We will open another workstation but that is joined or has joined the domain, and it contains Windows 10. This workstation was encountering or having problems to get updates from the WSUS. It gives an error, and I said before in the previous video I have searched this error on the internet, and one of the recommendations of this one of the solutions for solving the Windows update error is to make sure that this workstation doesn't have any proxy setting. So we will check this option and see if our workstation has or have a proxy setting. So maybe this was the reason, or this is the main reason why this workstation can't communicate with the WSUS and get updates. Okay, so let's see this here. Please, if you need more information, please refer to my previous video. Here we log into the workstation. Okay, one of the main reasons that some of your workstations can't communicate with the WSUS, that there is any proxy setting involved, okay, or maybe even you have mistaken, for example, if you had put a proxy error by mistake. So this is one of the main issues, okay, that you can't or the workstation can't get updates from the WSUS. Okay, let's return back for this error. Okay, let's go a little bit further. Okay, let's go here. This error says that it can't sign into the domain, okay, because it doesn't see the transformers.local domain. Okay, this problem, the main issue for this problem to arise or appear because the DHCP server is not working. Okay, the DHCP, as I said before, it is the role or the server role that is responsible for distributing IP addresses to the workstations or servers automatically, but here we are specifying it or limited it only to get or to give IPs to the workstations. So here it says that it can't find the domain or the domain isn't available. So make sure that the network cable is connected. Okay, you are connected to the network and you are and the domain is available. So this problem appears because this workstation didn't get an IP address because the DHCP server is not working. Okay, so how did I know this? Because when I checked my domain controller and saw my DHCP server, it wasn't working. So we'll see that in a moment. Let's see if this is paused. Yes, it's playing. So here we can see at the DHCP here we can see that all of them are down. Okay, this red icon means that the DHCP service is not running. So I will just right click the DHCP here from here and tell him to restart the DHCP service, okay, to solve this problem. So now we can see that the DHCP service is up and running. So now we can go to our workstation and see if we can log in back. As I said before, in this video we are discussing or we are troubleshooting why this workstation can't communicate with the WSUS server to get updates from it. Okay, as I said before, one of the solutions that the internet provided for us for this problem is to check if there is any proxy setting added or configured on the workstation, okay, or the server or workstation that tries to get updates from the WSUS. We will see that in a moment. So now we will go and check to see if there is any proxy setting for this workstation. To do this, we need to go to the start and then control panel and then internet options. Okay, Okay, we will go to the internet options. And then we will go to the connections tab, okay, to see if we have any, and LAN setting to see if we have any proxy. So here let me demonstrate. We remember in my some videos when I was working with the pfSense firewall, I have already installed the proxy server role on the pfSense firewall, okay. And I said before, the proxy main function is to cache the most or the frequently accessed websites on the proxy server. So this will make the internet make the speed of response of these websites to the client more faster. I mean, for example, if the proxy server, for example, what it does, if you go to Google, for example, website 10 times a day and the same website is repeatedly accessed by you, the proxy server takes a local copy of the Google or the part of the Google website that you are frequently accessing and takes a local cache or local copy on the pfSense firewall. So the next time you ask for the website, okay, he will get it from the local cache, not from the internet. Okay, and this is good because it's let's say it decrease the consumption of the internet bandwidth, especially if you are accessing the same server and the same website and the same data is asked or it is accessed again and again. Okay, so the proxy server sees what websites that you are frequently accessing and takes a local copy on it, so you can be able to access it from the local cache on the proxy server to decrease the consumption of the internet. Okay, so you remember when I was working with the pfSense firewall and we installed the proxy server, I have gone to this workstation and added this proxy server setting to the workstation, so I can make this workstation able to access the internet. Okay, so I forgot to remove this proxy server, so this was the problem why the workstation wasn't able to communicate with the WSUS server to get its update. So take care when you have a proxy server involved in your domain or your infrastructure domain. You need to make sure to tell the proxy server to pass the website to pass the IP and the name of the WSUS server, so the workstation can be able to communicate with it. Okay, because this proxy setting, okay, it will not communicate with the WSUS server. You need to make or to able to, in the proxy server setting, you need to tell him that you need to pass the WSUS traffic through you. Okay, for example, here, as I said before, you have the pfSense firewall and you have the proxy server installed on it. Okay, so to make the Windows updates for any workstation, for example, or any server that have this proxy setting on it, you need to configure the proxy server to pass the traffic coming from the WSUS, because normally it will not pass it. Okay, you need to tell him to pass the traffic from the WSUS server. Okay, so here we will uncheck this proxy server setting, so it will be able to communicate with the WSUS server. And if you need more information about the proxy server, what it does and how it is configured on pfSense, please refer to my previous videos. But the main function for the proxy server, again, as I said before, its main function is to cache the most frequently accessed website by users. To cache it will do, as I said before, it will cache the most frequently accessed websites by users on its local hard disk. Okay, so it will make accessing this website later to be faster and to decrease the consumption of the internet bandwidth, especially if this website is accessed repeatedly and the same data is displayed again and again and again. Okay, this is one of the proxy server functions, and another function for the proxy server is to monitor the traffic between the workstation and the firewall. Okay, this is, you can put on the proxy server, okay, you can put an antivirus, you can put an anti-malware detection. It also acts not only as a cache, but also acts as a web filter and an antivirus and an intrusion detection. All of this we have done it before in the previous videos when we installed the proxy server or added the proxy server function on the pfSense firewall. So the proxy server acts as a cache and an antivirus and an intrusion detection, and also as a web filter. We need, for example, some users not to access some websites. Also the proxy server acts as this function to block some websites or allow some websites. So here we did know the problem of why this workstation wasn't able to communicate with the WSUS. We will now uncheck and see if the WSUS server or this workstation can register itself with the WSUS server. So now we go to the PC setting and try to initiate a Windows update and see if this workstation will register itself with the WSUS. As I said before, every workstation and server need to register itself or to record itself in the WSUS records or database, so the WSUS can be able to identify that this workstation is available or this workstation is already in the network, and to identify also the updates that this workstation needs. So here we will let him retry. Here we will go to the we'll go to the WSUS. And you go to the computers and see, as I said before, the workstations and servers, the first container or the computer group that they will register themselves in, it will be in the unassigned computers. Here we can see that the workstation has appeared in the WSUS and registered itself. So now we will go and take it from the unassigned computers group to put it in the CompoBots group. This is the group for the workstations of the domain. Okay, and I said before, it is very effective and efficient to make new computer groups, okay, to differentiate the servers from the workstations. Okay, this is very critical because you do not need to have the updates, for example, installed on the workstations to be the same that it is installed on the servers. And for example, you don't need all of the updates to be installed once on all of the computers and servers. For example, you need first to install them on the workstations to test them first, and if they are, for example, good and there is no problems, you can then begin installing them on servers. Okay, so to have different computer groups, as I said before, it's very efficient, and it will organize your computers to be more so we can know where is the workstations, where is the servers, where is the computers that contains Windows 10. If you need to make a group for Windows 10 computers, a group for Windows Server computers, this is all available. So making computer groups is good to organize your computers in the domain, especially in the WSUS, and to test your as I said before, this is good also that you can allocate, or for example, you need some updates to be installed on a specific group of computers, for example, you need them or need some updates to be installed on the workstations, not on the servers. You need, for example, to install some updates on a specific workstations that, for example, have Windows 10 installed on them. So this is also I have discussed in the previous video. Here what we are doing, that we will install SQL 2019 on the domain controller. Why I'm doing this, I will tell you all. As I said before, when you install the WSUS puts or creates or records everything done through it in a database. Okay, it's called Windows Internal Database. So what type of data the WSUS, for example, records in this database? For example, the number of updates that the WSUS contains, the number of computers that WSUS contains, the number of approved updates that WSUS or that you as an administrator approved through the WSUS, the number of updates declined through the WSUS that you have declined, the number of computers that are up to date or their systems are up to date, the number of computers that are not reporting to the WSUS. Okay, all of this are recorded and put in a database, and this database type, or this database, its type, or yes, its type, it is called Windows Internal Database. It is not a SQL or it is not an Oracle. Okay, so it has some limitations. As I said before, or I have read that the Windows Internal Database have some limitation in the space or the size of the database is limited somehow. Okay, and as a database administrator, or if you are working with database, it is difficult to make maintenance to this database. For example, if you need to re-index or you need to compress the database if its size is large. Okay, this is not done easily. You need to have something called SQL CMD, okay, and work with SQL CMD to do all of this. If you need to re-index the database and you need to compress database, all this will be done through a SQL CMD tool. This is called SQL CMD tool, so you can do all of this. What I mean by re-index database means like you are defragging the computer, if you mean, or if you know what's a defrag mean. Okay, if you don't know what a defrag mean, it's by simple words, when you re-index, you are rearranging the files of the database so it is more easier and faster to access the WSUS. Okay, as by time when you work with WSUS and you have a lot of updates, the WSUS begins to be slower. Okay, and this is because the files or the records in the database of WSUS is not arranged properly. Okay, so the re-indexing, by simple words, it rearrange the folders and database, or the folder and data in the WSUS database, so it becomes more faster and easier to access. Okay, this is what I mean by re-index. As for compressed database, by time the WSUS database becomes bigger, so it needs to be zipped or be compressed. Okay, so as I said before, the Windows Internal Database that the WSUS works with, okay, to record its data, it has some limitation. As I said before, it has a certain limit size. Okay, and it is not easy to make maintenance to this database. What I mean by maintenance, that working for example, re-indexing and compressing, all of this is not easy. So what we will do, we will install a SQL 2019 database, and then we will move this WSUS Windows Internal Database, okay, to the SQL 2019. So by other words, we will change the type of WSUS database from Windows Internal Database to SQL database. On SQL database, each database limit or database size is much larger. Okay, as I said before, the Windows 10 database has a certain database limit size. Okay, as for the SQL, it's much more. The limit of the database or the size of the database is more. For example, if you are talking with the Windows Internal Database to be, for example, 200 54 gigabyte. Okay, I think I have read this in an article or something. In the SQL, the database limit is much more than 254 gigabyte. And to make maintenance on the database in SQL, it is much easier and more efficient when you work with SQL database. So this is why we will move the WSUS from using a Windows internal database to a SQL database, okay, to make the maintenance for database much easier, and to have the database size limit to be much more, okay. And also we can backup and do a lot of things much easier in a SQL database environment, which is not easily done when the WSUS is working with a Windows internal database type, okay. As I said before, why WSUS uses a database, as I said before, to record all of the process or all of the activity of the WSUS server in this database. What is these activities? I have said before: updates, concerning the updates, approval, denial, and a lot of things. And also from this database you can run reports and get reports on the latest updates that has been issued from Microsoft, the latest status of your workstations and servers, if they are updated or not. So this is briefly what we will do. We will change the WSUS from using a Windows internal database Windows internal database to use a Windows to use a SQL 2019 database. So here we will do this. Let's continue. So the first step, we have the SQL 2019 database, or the SQL 2019 database ISO image, or yes, the SQL database ISO image. This is the CD or the DVD that we will install the SQL database from it, SQL 2019 database from it. And before doing this, we need to do something, okay. Before installing the SQL database, we need to create an Active Directory account, okay, and we will name it SQL Service Active Directory account. The responsibility of this Active Directory, we will name it, as I said before, SQL Active Directory Service account. This Active Directory user, it will be responsible for running all of the SQL 2019 services, okay. For example, the SQL server needs some services to be running. For example, the SQL agent, the SQL all of the other SQL services. We will use this Active Directory Service account to be the responsible one for running all of the SQL database services, okay. So here now we will see that when we install the SQL 2019 database, so be patient. So now we make a new account. You will name it SQL. We will see that when we are installing the SQL database, we will see this, what I mean by this. We will name it SQL Service account. We will use this account to run all of the SQL database activities through this SQL Active Directory account. It will be responsible for all of the SQL database activities. It will run by this Active Directory user account. So we name it SQL Server. Actually, also another thing, you need to make it, or to make the password of this account to never expire, because this account will be the responsible account for running all of the services concerning the SQL database. So this is very critical. If this account stopped for any reason, or if your SQL database will not work, so we need to make sure that it doesn't have any password expire date, because when the password expire date comes, the account will be locked and you need to reset the password for this account to work again. And as I said before, this account is very critical because it will run all of the SQL 2019 services, okay. So, and also after making this account, we need to make it a member of the group, the Active Directory group, which is called tr_it. Why I am adding this user account to the group which is named by tr_it? This is a group that I have already created when making the transformers.local domain. This group contains all of the IT personnel, and then this group is a member of the most powerful built-in Active Directory groups. For example, tr_it group is a member of the domain admins, member of the enterprise admins, member of the schema admins. Okay, so when the IT group, or sorry, when a member of the IT is put in the group which is called tr_it, and then this group is a member of the schema admins, the enterprise admins, the domain admins, and the administrators group, so this IT personnel have full control on the domain controller. Okay, it can do anything. Okay, when you are a member of this tr_it. So tr_it is a member of all of the Active Directory most important built-in groups. Okay, so I will put the SQL account, okay, that I have created in the tr_it, which is in turn is a group, or it is a member of all of the, I said before, the most powerful Active Directory groups. So this SQL account have full domain admin rights on the domain, so it can do anything. Okay, if it needs to start a service, needs to do something, or anything concerning the domain, it will have full domain admin rights. Okay, this is not dangerous, because as I said before, it's the password, it will be never expire, and when you create any such, or any, if you are creating what we call service accounts or Active Directory service accounts, we need to make the password of these service accounts that have a very strong password. For example, if you have your user accounts, user accounts, to have, for example, the password to be from 7 characters, you need to make the password for the Active Directory service accounts to be 20, and we have done this in a previous video, and I show you how to make this and how to implement it. Okay, so what we are doing, that we are adding the SQL service Active Directory account to the tr_it group to have full access to the domain, because the tr_it is a member of all of the important Active Directory groups, which are tr_it is a member of the domain admins, enterprise admins, schema admins. Okay, so anyone is a member of this group will have full domain admin rights. Okay, so let's go. We have done this also in all of the service accounts. For here we can see, for example, here we can see that we have the pfSense service account, the RMS, the Active Directory Right Management service account, and the Backup Exec service account. All of these accounts are a member of the tr_it, which is a member of, as I said before, a member of the domain admins, enterprise admins, schema admins. So this makes all of these service accounts have full access, or full domain rights, or full domain admin rights to all of the domain. Okay, so now we will mount the also here we will make another thing. We will make I think, yes, we will mount the SQL. We will set up SQL Server 2019 Enterprise database. So we will mount this ISO image, and then we will click on the setup. Just a moment. So here we can see that we can click on the setup. We will here go to the installation section, and tell him to install NewSQL standalone and add features existing. NewSQL standalone. Here we will install NewSQL Server standalone installation. We will click on this one. Okay. And here we will tell him to accept the license agreement. Here he's telling you to check updates. Okay, we can get a little bit further. Again, just a minute. So here we will check the license agreement. Okay, and tell him okay, and then he will begin checking the global rules. He will check if your server have the requirement, the hardware requirement to install. Just a minute here. It will check if you have your hardware requirement. It is the minimum to install a SQL 2019, because it will check the RAM and the processor. So if you have the minimum requirement, it will pass. And here it's asking you to check the internet if there is any update for the SQL 2019 version, if there is any updates for this SQL version. So I will not check for updates for the SQL Server 2019. Okay, I will not check this, so I will pass it. So here it's after checking. Let's go a little bit further. Here she's checking if your environment, as I said before, the hardware and the software, if you have anything that this SQL needs, it will tell you. Here we can see, for example, it's not recommending us to install SQL 2019 on a domain controller, so we will bypass this because I don't have accept this server. So in best practice, not to install the SQL 2019 on a domain controller. You need to make it on a normal server that is not a domain controller. Okay, so make sure of this. We have our firewall. You need to have some rules on the firewall to pass the SQL ports. Okay, so the clients can be able to communicate to the WSUS, because as I said before, we will use this SQL database to make our WSUS put all of its activity on it. Okay, so also the clients will need to access the WSUS and put their data or their activities on this database. Okay, so you need the clients to access the WSUS server and to access also not only the WSUS server and also to access the SQL database. Okay, so you need to have some firewall rules to pass the ports for the SQL. Okay, so this is, we have done it. Actually you can just disable the firewall for the moment and then work with the installation, but in the future or in the best practice you need to make firewall rules to pass the SQL ports. Okay, from the client side and from the server side. Okay, so we will check what we need to install from the SQL 2019. We will check the following. We will check the database engine services, and we will check the full text and semantic extraction and database quality services and analysis services. and the data quality, client and client tools connectivity, and client tools SDK, and client tools backward compatibility, and client SQL connectivity SDK. We don't need to know what these things do, but this will be critical for our SQL database to work efficiently, okay? Or that we will need later to access the database, or the tools and the things we need for our SQL database to work perfectly. And here now we will install the SQL database on the F drive. Remember that I have made this F drive for the WSUS to be installed on, so we will install the SQL database on the F drive. I will make a folder. It's F. Okay, so here we will type the name. Okay, program files, Microsoft SQL Server. So now we have installed it on this on the F drive in folder name program files, Microsoft SQL Server / etc. And then here we will ask us what the database will be named. When you install the SQL for the first time, you need to have a name for this SQL Server database. So the default SQL Server database name will be MS SQL Server, okay? The database should have a name, okay? When you install a SQL database, you need to have a name for this SQL database. So the default name is MS SQL Server. Or the first instant installed on this SQL database, you need to give it a name, okay? So here for the step that I will show you why this is very important, the next step. So here in this step, he is telling you, just a minute, this is the services for the SQL database. There is something called SQL Server Agent, SQL Server Database Engine, SQL Server Analysis Service, SQL Full Text Filter whatsoever, SQL Server Browser. All of these services need to be run by an Active Directory or a Windows account. So all of these services for the SQL database, I will run them by the account that I have created for a couple of minutes, which is called SQL Service Account. I have created a user called SQL Service Account in the Active Directory. I will use this Active Directory account to run all of these services with, okay? So this is why I have created an Active Directory account and name it SQL Service Account to run all of these run all of these SQL database services by the SQL Active Directory Service Account. We'll show this in a moment how I do this. So here I will tell him SQL SCRV. This is the name of my SQL Active Directory account, okay? And then I will put the password. Also I will use all of these services are very critical for the database to work, so you need to make sure that the account or the Active Directory account that will be used to run these services, this account should be available 24/7. So its password should not be expired. The password should be very strong because also this service account will have full access to the domain. So you need to make its password very strong and the password never expire. So the account will be available 24/7. Here we'll make it automatic. And here also I will run this account by this is the account, the SQL Service Active Directory account, okay? And now here is another thing we can see here. Here it's telling you how you want to access the SQL database. You can access it by an Active Directory account. For example, I have my username or domain admin account which is named krauf. You can make this account or Active Directory account be able to access the SQL database through something called Windows Authentication Mode, or you can create an account on the SQL database and the default user is named SA. This account is like that. This is the administrator account for the SQL database. Okay, you can put a password for this administrator account and access the database SQL database by this account. So I will use the mixed mode. Okay, I will use both. I can use the administrator or the SQL database local account which is called SA account. I can use this account to access the database, or I can use my Active Directory user account to access the database. I will use both. Okay, so you need also to make sure that the SA account of this SQL database administrator account, you need to make sure that this password is very strong also. Okay, here just a minute. Also we can I need to show you all where we are, why we will migrate or will change the WSUS from using a Windows internal database to a SQL database. I can show you why there is some WID, there is some reasons versus SQL. Okay, just a minute. WSUS WID versus SQL. Okay, here let's show you it's saying here. Okay, he's saying, for example, that the limitation for the Windows 10 database, you have only a limitation for the database size to be 254 gigabyte. Okay, and as I said before, it says that the main reason to use SQL is performance. As I said before, it for the cleanup of the database and the indexing of the database and the compressing of the database, this is working very good with the SQL database. Okay, and also I have seen some recommendations for some things. Okay, but this is one of the main reasons, as I said before, the limitation and the indexing and compress is much better when are using the SQL database instead of the internal database. Add current user, we will use. Okay, I can add here. I will not add my user account. I will add the whole Active Directory Active Directory IT group. Okay, so anyone in the IT group will be able to access the SQL database, not only me. Okay, so now this is something related to the analysis service account or service configuration. He is asking for a user to run these services, so also I will add the tr_it, which is the Active Directory IT group. Okay, I will add it here also and leave everything for the default. Then it will begin installation of the SQL database. So another thing, after installing the SQL database, I will show you if you have any problem or encountered any problem concerning the SQL database which services you need to check and see if they are responsible for these problems, or where or from where to troubleshoot. You need to check some services and some steps. I will show you how to troubleshoot, or the troubleshooting steps of the SQL 2019 database. Okay, so here I'm installing something called SQL Server Management Tool. Okay, this tools is the way that I can access the database. Okay, without these tools I cannot, or I will not be able to access the SQL database and, for example, make some maintenance to the database or remove something from the database if I don't have these tools. This is graphical interface tools. With it I can access the SQL database. Of course you can do this through the command prompt, okay, but for easier management I will need to install the SQL Server Management Tools to be able to access the SQL database through a graphical interface, and to do what I need to do, for example, to make some maintenance to the database, to re-index the database, to compress the database. All of this will be done through the server management tools. Okay, this is not by default, it is not in the ISO or the DVD of the SQL 2019 software. Okay, so you need to download it from the internet. So we can pause this real quickly. Okay, I can pause it here. Just a minute. Okay, we will go here and we'll go to the internet and install or download this SQL Management Studio tools. Okay, we need to install it or to download it. Okay, let me show you here because I need to pass it real quickly. Just a minute. No, another one. Here. Go there and just a minute. Okay, yes, we will install or we download this, but before this we need to do something else. Okay, here after installing the SQL 2019 database, there is something like a service pack. I have already included something like a service pack for the SQL 2019. It's a service pack 1 actually, or something like this. You need, before installing the SQL management tools, you need to first install the SQL 2019 service pack 1, okay, files or the updates for this SQL 2019 database before installing the SQL management tool. So here I am installing the hotfix pack. Okay, this is something like a service pack for the SQL 2019 database. Okay, so you need to make sure that your SQL database is the latest or the up-to-date SQL 2019, or any version of SQL. It need to be the latest version, because the latest version contains all, or contains all the fixes, or it is working perfectly without any bugs. Okay, so here I am installing the hotfix pack. We need to check the internet to see if the SQL 2019 has any fixes or any patches or any service package. I have searched the internet and I found one, and I am installing it. Before installing the management tools, okay, I said before, the management tools is a graphical interface, so I can be able to access the SQL database through a graphical interface, not through the command prompt. Okay, so we need to go to internet and search for the SQL management tools. Let me go a little bit further. Just a minute. What I am doing here. Okay, either installing or downloading the SQL Server Management. So this is the SQL or SQL management tools. We will download it. So now we are downloading the SQL. So let's go a little bit further. Okay, here this is the hotfix. Okay, this is a SQL to Server 2019 update or hotfix. You need to install it after installing the SQL 2019 database or the main SQL Server 2019 database. This is an update for the SQL Server 2019. It's like Windows 10 and Windows 10 update. This is something like SQL Server 2019. We have installed it first, and then we install an update to the SQL Server 2019. So now it's installing the update. Actually, the server hanged in this process, but as I'm just showing you, it will tell you the Windows Server updates and license agreement and some confirmations. You will accept the license agreement next, and then if you need to add anything, this is the features that we have installed before when we were installing the SQL database, the main SQL database, not the update. And then it's checking for files. Okay, here we can pass this real quickly. After that it will update, check files in use. Okay, and then update, ready to update, and then update the process. So let's go a little bit further. Sorry, here we'll begin again the process. Here just a minute. Here what I have did or what I have done during the process of installing the SQL Server 2019 update, the server hanged for me. Okay, so I have restarted the server again, and I will install the SQL Server 2019 update for the second time. Okay, so here what you have to do first, you need to check for troubleshooting any problems with the SQL database. You need to check a couple of services and make sure that they are running. So where we can check these services and check that they are running from the services from here, I'll show you in a moment. So as I said before, I have the server hanged during installing of the SQL Server 2019 update. So I have restarted the server, and I will initiate the SQL Server 2019 update initiate it again for the second time, or will set up the SQL Server 2019 update again. Here we need to make sure some services are running to make sure that the SQL database is running perfectly. Here the VMware tools, don't need to check it. This is something related to the VM Workstation Pro. I'm just checking it. Okay, Windows internal database, I said before, this is very critical for the WSUS to be up and running. So you need to make sure that the Windows internal database service is up and running, so the WSUS it can be up and running and working. Okay, just for a moment I will show you what SQL Server services we need or what is SQL database services that we need to check to troubleshoot if there is any SQL database problems. Okay, here just install, just make sure that the Windows internal database is up and running. And make sure also for the WSUS that the WSUS service is running. These two services are very important to make sure that the WSUS is up and running. Okay, and as for the SQL, when you are troubleshooting any SQL database access problems, you need to make sure here that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, these 8 services are all up and running. Here you can see that not all of them are running, so I will have a problem accessing my SQL database. Why this is problem? Because the account, the SQL service account, Active Directory account that I have used is not its password need to be checked again and or retyped again. We will see that in a moment. Here this is the first service, and then here when I tell him to start, he will tell me that there is an error, so I need to right click and properties, and then go to the login section, okay, and then retype the password. Here is the account that I am using to run all of the SQL database services. Here I will type the password. Apply and OK, and then start the service. I think I can pass this real quickly also. Here we can see that the SQL service is running and the SQL agent is running. Here we can pass all of this, okay. We can pass also this real quickly. Okay, we are running all of, okay, this is the last service, all of them are up and running. So now we will go and install the SQL Server 2019 update for the second time. As I said before, I have failed for the first time installing this update because the server has hanged for some hardware issues, okay. So now I will begin installation of the SQL Server update again. Go there, okay, and here is the SQL, here is the KB, okay. This is the update or the SQL Server 2019 hotfix. We need to install it after installing the SQL 2019 Enterprise software. You need to install it directly after installing this. You need to install this hotfix or service pack. Now it's extracting this service pack or this update. It's decompressing it, okay. I think I can pass all of this real quickly. So here, just a minute, no, you can get it off. Okay, here we go. And during installation of this SQL Server 2019 update, I will install the SQL management tools, okay, the one that we have been downloading. As I said before, this is a tool that we will use to access the SQL database from a graphical interface. You can access the database from command prompt, but this is much easier because from the graphical interface I can re-index the database, I can make backup jobs, I can make clean up for database. All of this will be done easily through the graphical interface. So here we will install and actually we need to install the management tools after installing the hotfix or the service pack or the Windows or for the SQL Server 2019 update. Here we have done this before. Here with license agreement, and here it's select features. We have done this before. Here we are checking for files. You see this step, he is seeing that if the SQL database is using any files now in the database, because all of this or the update, for the update to be running, it needs no access on the SQL database, okay. So he's saying that there is no files in use, okay. Here it's ready for the update process. Tell him update. It will take a little bit of time, okay, until the update finishes, okay, and it can become like this, okay. And what I am checking now, just a minute. Here again I'm checking the services for the SQL. They have not run or they have stopped. Okay, just a minute, I will show you all. Here are a little problem. Let's go back. Again, here also after installing the SQL Server 2019 update, an error appeared during the setup saying that the SQL Server services are not running. So I have checked again the SQL Server services or the SQL database services. Here we can see again, just a minute, here we can see again that all of the SQL Server services are not running. Just a minute, this has appeared from me. Here you can see that all of the SQL database services are not running. This I checked again the services because when I was installing the SQL Server 2019 update, it says at the end of the setup that there is a problem with the services of the SQL database. So I again go there and check them and started them again. Okay, so here we just retype the password again and tell him okay, the same that I have did from a couple of seconds. Okay, so now I am starting all of the services. Okay, so all of them are up and running. So now after starting all of them, I can now install the SQL management tools. Here, okay, we can go now and begin the installation of the SQL management tools. Just a minute. Here it's now I have begun the installation. Okay, just a minute here again. Here I'm installing the SQL, and after finishing of the installation of the SQL management studio or the SQL management tools, it will tell us to restart the server. Okay, it need to restart the service or need to restart the server. So now it will restart the server again. Okay, so we can go there. Okay, and just a minute, I have restarted the server and also again checked. Here let's go a little bit further. You need to check again, just a minute. After restarting the server, you need to check just another minute. Here you go. Just a minute. You need to check again that the services are for the SQL database are all up and running. Okay, so I have checked them again, and then I will go to the before opening the. Why we check this? Before opening the SQL management tools, we need to make sure also that these services are running. Okay. So here we will open programs. Okay, open start and then all programs, and then I am just pinning or putting the shortcut for the SQL management studio on the desktop. Okay, here is the SQL management. Okay, and here is SQL management, SQL server tools, and then the SQL management studio 18. Yeah, little pin it or pin it to the taskbar. Okay, and then we will click on it. Just a minute. Here it will open our SQL Management Studio interface. Here is the name of the server, and it will use the Windows authentication method. It will use my Active Directory user account to access the SQL database. Okay, so tell him to connect, and as you see here, you can use the local database SQL database user, which is SA, but here I'm using my Active Directory. So here after that, after logging in, we can see that I have successfully accessed my SQL database, and this is all for this video. The next video we will see how we can migrate the WSUS Windows internal database to this SQL database, and how we can do the different things from re-indexing and cleaning up the database and doing a lot of things actually. So until then, I hope this video was all informative for you, and would like you to thank you all for viewing. Thank you.